Okay, so our pasuk yesterday, 1528, was Leiv Tzadik Yehege Lanos Ufi Roshaim Yabia Raos. Okay, so we translated it as the heart or mind of a tzaddik expresses Yehege. We wanted to say is like it means speech, but it also means thinking, and it also means like articulate, or also means inarticulate. So we struggle with that. To answer or to call, David said call out, but now that he's not here, I'm going to delete it. No. I don't think I think in certain cases it could mean to call out, but I think that's not the right translation here. Ufi Rashaim, because there's just other ways to say it. Likro, right? Or I don't know. But the mouth of the wicked bubbles out evils. Okay, so I come bearing methodology today. Okay, I don't have any ideas, but when I first read this, I had an association of another meaning of la'anos, which I did not say because to my mind it's like not even possible. Yeah, to afflict. Okay, right. So there is one pasuk, at least one pasuk, if not two, that that I know that form of it, la'anos, means to afflict. Anyone know? I mean, there's probably more than that, but so I'll tell you, I know it just because I learn Koheles every year. But in Koheles, where is it in Koheles? Oh, hold on a second here. Yeah, wait, that's Kalim. Oh, Lanosbo. Yeah, Koheles. Hold on, Koheles. Yeah, this is describing reality, well, or his perception of reality. Ani Koheles Hayisi. This is in 113. So I set my mind or my heart to seek out and investigate with Chachma, or to investigate Chachma on everything that happens under the heavens. Hu inyan ra. It is a bad or an evil matter. Okay, inyan, right? Nasan elokim livnei adam la'anos bo. That God gave man, and then here are a three-way machlokas on la'anos bo to so some say it is like the same lashon as inyan, to be like, or like in modern Hebrew, like ma'anyen, right? Like to be like preoccupied with. Some say it means to I think to answer, and some say it means to torture him with. Okay, that God gave this to man to like afflict him with, right? So I immediately associate to that. I think to say another one on Koheles also. Yeah, and Koheles Gimel Yud, same thing. Yeah, fine. So same thing, right? So I associated that. I was like, nah, it can't be. Okay. And indeed, I don't think it can be. But the Miuchas L'Radak, the commentary attributed to the Radak, says, Leiv Tzadik Yehegelanos, Klomar, Yidag Belibo, he will worry in his heart, V'yimare Rucha, and he will embitter his spirit, Al Chataosav, for his sins. Yodea, because he knows Shesofo Lamod Bedin, that ultimate, eventually he will stand in judgment. Uma Ya'aneh Lifnei Akel. And what will he answer before God? Now, I don't know if that's an intentional like double entendre here, because he also says Ya'aneh Lifnei Akel, you know. But and Lanos is min la'ana varosh. So he says it means from like wormwood and gall and wormwood. I don't really know what the difference is. Yeah, okay, but so like bitter things. Okay, right. So from what I've seen, and I haven't done every single commentary on Mishlei, but I just did the ones on All Torah. No one else says this. Okay, so the question is, what do you do with that? Okay, so if this were Davka, if this were for certain the Radak, then I would be like, okay, he's a grammarian, he knows what he's talking about. But because this is suspect whether this is the Radak, to me, I know Rabbi Novetsky thinks this is the Radak, because that's why he doesn't say Miuchas. I feel like if this were the Radak I know and love, would bring rayas that this is the case, and that the absence of linguistic rayas throughout his entire what do you call Mishlei commentary? Yeah, Mishlei commentary. To me, also is indicative that this is not the Radak. I did check out his Sefer. I did a search for law notes in all of the Radak's works, and he does not comment on this on our pasuk, and it seems like he only translates it as law notes when it is the context like warrants it, but here we can't know. So I just figured I'd mention it. I don't think we're gonna like take this seriously, but like it is a possibility. Okay, anyway, what are the other translations we had? So we had Yehege Mitzusion says Machshavah, think, plan, plot. Sadion says Lanos is to refute, like to answer in refutation style. And then we have the Targum Septuagint. I always forget how to say it. Septuagint, right? Yeah. and and the Syriac Torah, the Pshitata, which is the heart or mind of the tzaddik sings steadfastness or utters truth. Yeah, okay, fine. All right, so then we had our questions. What is the subject of the pasuk? Is it the nature of what you say, the verbal/mental contents of the Tzadik and Rasha, or the process of thinking? What's the decision-making scenario? Who are the Tzadik and Rasha talking to? 3, why is the Tzadik described as reactive, answering? Is that also implied for the Rasha, or is the Rasha davka not reactive? And if so, why the difference? Why wouldn't the Tzadik be proactive? And maybe Lanos is there to convey the scenario, but it really applies to both. 4, what are the denotations and connotations of Yehege and Yabia? How are they similar and different? 5, what are the definitions of Tzadik and Rasha in this context, and what level of thinking are we meant to ascribe to them? 6, what exactly are the Tzadik and Rasha saying? 7, this is obvious. What's the chiddush, especially in relation to similar psukim? I did find methodology for here also. Okay, I'll show it to you now because it's not a full pirush. The Hoyel Moshe, who is increasingly ascending in my ranks as favorite meforshim. Lanos gam im ma'anehu tov yachshov terem ya'aneh. Even if his response is good, he'll think about it before he says it. The Inyan pasuk said dome le'inyan pasuk beis. Says the idea is similar to pasuk beis, which is the one that we said. Lashon chachamim tetiv das ufiksil yabi ivelas. So whenever they say dome, you're like, okay, so tell me more. You're saying, so like I don't know what to make of that. Okay. What are ra'os in this context, and who are they ra to? 9, what does lave mean in this context? 10, what does p mean in this context? Is there a difference between the different parts of speech or of the body that produce speech? 11, how are the two sides opposites? Why lave versus p? Why yehege and yabia? Ra'os versus either a nondescript response or ne'manos. Why tzaddik singular versus rishayim plural? 12, under what circumstances is the pasuk true? And 13, who's the audience of the pasuk? So our approaches yesterday were Isaac, which is that the tzaddik is actually responding, meaning he's listening to the person who he's talking to, and the response comes from his lave. So the Rasha, in contrast, his mouth, the response is coming from his mouth, not his mind, and it's not a niya. It's not a response. It's him voicing his own thoughts based on his own internal stuff. And then we wanted to differentiate. Ezra said that the Avil, his mouth bubbles up with stupidities. The Rasha's bubblings are going to seem intelligent and articulate and maybe relevant, but it's coming from his Rasha-ness. So it's just basically be more on guard against the Rasha. Because his comments could look like the Tzaddik's, whereas the Avil is not going to necessarily look like that. Yeah, Isaac?
Yeah, I said another practical application is also when you're responding to be wary about whether you're doing a response that sounds good from your own. Oh, no, sorry, that was for David's idea. Never mind.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I got that there. Right. So David's idea is about what precedes the speech. So the tzaddik is going to think and then respond. The Rasha is going to say whatever comes out of his mouth. So then we ask, how's that different than the fool chacham? As Rakapel said, the Ra'os refer to the fact that the Rasha's speech caters to the Yetzer Hara of both parties or people in general. David said that the Rasha is thinking emotionally, and that's why he responds immediately, or at least the Rasha's responses cater to the other person's emotional immediate thinking. Yeah, I don't know what we got from there, but then Isaac said...
my understanding of that was that the Rasha, as opposed to, let's say, an Avil, who the things that he's saying might come sound stupid, but the Rasha is saying something that he knows will sound good to other person's emotions.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's more manipulative in that sense. He's tailoring it to the other person's emotions, right? Where the Avil is not. Yeah, that's a good distinction. Then Sean's idea was that the second half is plural and the first half is singular because the Rishayim, there is a certain common denominator of rishus in the Rasha's mentality, or they feed off of each other, or they ferment each other, they egg each other on, try to outdo each other, whereas the tzaddik is actually independent. And my critique was not of the idea, but just the methodology of not making the idea so contingent on the singular versus plural. And then Moshe Kappel said that the also focusing on the thinking in advance, but the tzaddik is interested in the truth, whereas the Rasha is interested in his own narrative. And then Haman's the great example that Moshe Rosenthal gave for that, is that that when he answered Achashverosh, it was also kind of off the top of his ego. Yeah, right. And totally dictated by that. Okay. Any other ideas before we go into the meforshim? Okay, let's start as usual with Metzudas David. I haven't had time to work on this yet, but just to survey it. Okay, so Metzudas David says, Yege is inya. Terem Yana. Before he answers, Yakshav belibo ma Yana. So he'll think in his heart, in his mind, what to answer. But Alkain Devarav Ma'atim. Therefore, his words are few. About Pi Rishaim. But the mouth of the Rashaim, Yarbe Ladaber Raos, he'll be excessive in speaking evils, Kamayan Hanaveh, like a flowing wellspring. Ki Daber Kol Ha'ola Al Rucho Ve'eno Choshesh. He'll say whatever comes to his mind and he won't worry. Now, I would have the same critique here as I did before. It's like, what's the difference between this and the Avil, right? Do you see anything on the surface like that would make us think Tzadik versus Rasha? Because if not, then I have someone who's going to save us. Okay, my second piece of methodology for the day. So our good friend Rבינו Sheshes. Okay, so I'll read him and we'll think about like what his idea is. But I also want you to tell me how would he respond to my question that I keep asking about what the difference is. Okay, so he says Leiv Tzadik Yaged Lanos Od Yidaber B'inyan Hagaiva V'Hashiflus. This is still talking about haughtiness and lowliness. And let's just quickly review our chain of psukim that he holds as one topic here. So it started off with Beis Geim Yisach Hashem v'Yatzev Gvul Almana. Hashem will uproot the house of the haughty and establish the boundary of the widow. To Avos Hashem Machshavah Ra U'Tohorim Imrei Noam. An abomination of Hashem is the thoughts of evil, and pure are the statements of pleasantness. Ocher Beis Obotei Abatzav V'Sonim Matanos Yichya. One who corrupts one who gains through greed or illegally will corrupts his house, but one who hates gifts will live. And then we got our pasuk. And so he says, where did he go? So this is talking about Gai ben Shiflus, V'yomar ki Tzadik, and this is saying that the Tzadik, V'hu hashafel, which is the humble person, kasher yidabru elav b'nei adam, when people speak to him, v'yishalu mimenu al dvarim mihadvarim, and they ask him about any particular thing, yehege lanos, he will think to respond. Klomar, libo yechashev machshavos lanos bohem, his mind will think thoughts to respond with. About in lo yicholes b'peh lahashivam. Is that yicholes? It's weird that it doesn't have a vav. But he doesn't have the ability with his mouth to respond. I feel like that's not yicholes. You'll see what he's getting at though. He's accustomed himself to silence. And to not answer to a conflict, meaning like to not like jump into the conflict or stoke the conflict. All of this is for showing how accustomed he is or habituated he is to silence. Okay, but the mouth of the Rashaim will express evils. These are the haughty people. They are the opposite of this quality of shtika. Their mouths will express evils. The thoughts of their mouth are primed to respond brazenly and provocatively because they've been accustomed to this. Okay, so even before we get to the idea, how does it look like he's answering my question about, it says Tzadik and Rasha?
Well, he's saying that the Rashaim will try to speak a lot, but not because they're not intelligent, but because they are trying to deliberately cause conflict.
Okay, so that's one way to take his response, which is that the contents of their speech are Rashaim, and like the people, they're doing Rasha type stuff, which I think is a good read. I have a different answer though, and this one has to do more with methodology and specifically the Rav Shesh's methodology. That's the hint. This is
based on the context of the cluster?
Yes. Okay, right. Okay. So this is a big methodology point. Okay. So in the past, when we have Tzadik and Rasha or Chacham and Fool, I always say that you have to ask, is this the Mishlei archetype of Rasha and Tzadik? In which case, like whatever theory you have of Tzadik and Rasha, you're going to assume that this is talking about. So the technical sense, or the very generic sense of sometimes Mishlei uses it as good guy, bad guy, or good decision maker, bad decision maker. But the Rav Sheshes is showing us that you have to define Tzadik and Rasha in terms of the inyan, in terms of the context. And if he holds that the inyan here is haughtiness and humility, so then it's a Tzadik anava and a Rasha in Gaiva, you know. So that's like a third possibility for how to interpret these things. And I think that my guess is, I don't see anything to prevent me from saying this, is that I think this would apply across the board. Like, let's say you see someone, in fact, we did see this, right? The thing that made my that made Revina Sheshes jump up in my Mishlei tier rating was the thing that we did with the what was it, with the laziness, and then the Tam and the Yashar. Was it the Tam and the Yashar in a cluster that that we had a bunch of pasukim about?
Yeah, it was was.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. It was a bunch of pasukim about midos, and then a laziness pasuk, and we were like, what's this laziness pasuk doing here? And he said, no, he says, whenever you see the laziness at the end of a cluster about a different topic, then it's laziness vis-a-vis that midah, you know? So there, it's true that there is a relationship between the Mishlei archetype of laziness and this particular expression, but he's learning it in the context. It's like lazy in midos, you know? So here it's like Tzadik in humility and Rasha in Gaiva. So I think that's interesting. Yeah, now we got to get the idea though. So he's also adding this idea of shtika. And the reason why I jumped from Metzudas David to this is because I think that there's an allusion in Metzudas David that he's taking it similarly, because he says, al kain devarav me'atin. And the thing is like, I don't know where in the pasuk he's getting that from, because
Probably from Yabia.
That could be that's a good point, right? Yabia is excess and unrestrained. So the tzaddik is minimal and thoughtful, like restrained. So yeah, and again, I'm not dismissing your interpretation, because I think you could also say that that this is a you could use a similar move, that this is not a Rasha in terms of his Mishlei definition, but if the contents of his speech are rishus, then you can say he's a Rasha in speech, you know? Like, for example, like a Lates is its own Mishlei personality type, but I would call him, if you're defining him based on his speech, it's rishus speech. It's lashon hara, it's insults and stuff like that. Yeah. So what's the idea? See, if you do say that this is a Yecholes, that's a little difficult, that he doesn't have the ability to answer them because he's accustomed himself to silence. That would seem to be taking a good midah too far.
Or maybe saying immediately, if in the heat of the moment people want to get him to and he just
that's
is not
interesting.
Able to engage in that kind of behavior.
Yeah, that's interesting. That reminds me of the, oh man, I'm gonna butcher this. Oh no, I'm not gonna butcher this. I know who it is. There's an anecdote I heard, don't remember who it was from, about what's the Supreme Court Justice? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? Yeah. Right. What did you say?
I said Ruth.
Oh yeah, okay. I was okay, yeah, right. So you know, that one. Yeah. So I heard someone interview with someone who interviewed her, like kind of like late in her career. And this interviewer said, like, I would ask a question and it would take her forever to respond. So he said, I thought to myself, like, oh, she really is getting old, like she is slowing down. And then this interviewer mentioned that in passing to someone, and they said, oh, no. She's always done this even when she was young. You know, like if you go back and hear like you know, recordings of her when she was young, she will think before she speaks. And even if you try to get her to respond urgently, like she'll want to think before. And so it's like a reflex of stopping and thinking. The other thing that I know I've quoted in Mishlei before is my Rabbi Dr. Chaim Feuerman. What's the technique called? Silence? No, what's it called? Wait time. Yeah. So this is Rabbi Feuerman's move in teaching. Okay. Wait time 1 and wait time 2. He was the one who mentored me in Israeli. So he says, wait time 1 is a teaching strategy where after posing a question, the teacher hesitates for 3 to 5 seconds before calling on someone, right? So that one I'm good at. Okay. I used to be really bad at it. I'm getting better. I shouldn't say I'm good at it, but it's harder in certain contexts, but yeah, I shouldn't say I'm good at it. I'm not good at it. I'm improving on it. Okay. Usually the teacher calls on the first couple of students to raise their hands. These students are not necessarily the smartest students in the class. They're the fastest. Students who take longer to process rarely have a voice in the typical classroom. Okay, fine. But then wait time 2, as followed for wait time 1, Rabbi Foreman also spoke of wait time 2. This is a teaching strategy in following up on a student's question. After the student responds, the teacher pauses, waiting another 3 to 5 seconds and looking reflective. This will encourage all the students in the class to reflect as well and will demonstrate to the student who answered that you value their thinking. I am terrible with this. I'm absolutely terrible. Rabbi Foreman not only talked about the value of wait time, he lived it. And so this is a thing I also found this frustrating. He would literally wait 3 to 5 full, like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, and then respond to like what the student was saying, you know? So I do think that it is, I mean, I think it's a good, if socially awkward, move of like habituating yourself to like wait before responding. And if you want to engage in I feel like this would make a good, like my, Tshuva experiment things of like for 2 weeks, trying to make this a practice and just see what it does and see how differently. In other words, one experiment is seeing whether you are capable of it, but the other is seeing how does this impact my conversations with people or my learning, you know? Oh man, that's hard to me. I maybe I got to try it, but yeah, I'll wait for the summer when I'm not talking to anyone. Yeah.
It's possible to also like kill the conversation sort of. Like,
so, you would think that, but I think from my recollection, the opposite happens is it creates this odd kind of suspense where everyone wants to know what the teachers think. Well, for the wait time 1, it definitely works because then everyone is like invested. But for wait time 2, there is this like anticipation of like, what is he going to say? You know, and again, and he would do this. I think he would like look up, people like look up and when they think he would do that, so yeah, it's weird. Try it out, see what happens. Let me know if you try it. Yeah, Isaac.
Could you just can you just demonstrate it right now, just so we can all experience what it's like?
I'm not going to demonstrate it artificially. I'll try to demonstrate it in reality. Yeah, and that was a first failure. Yeah, no, that was a request. That was a request. Yeah. So what is he? So I feel like that's what he's talking about here is the midah of shtika, as opposed to the practice of shtika. And what I mean by that is like in midos, you are like trying to a certain extent to automatize, like make a certain reaction automatic. So if your reflex is response versus your reflex is reflection, then you'll have to like pull yourself out of it in order to respond, even when the situation demands it. It's interesting, by the way, also, he does say Reeve, which I'm getting the vibe here of there are 2 parties involved. Either let's say 2 people come to you to ask for something, or one person is coming to you and they're trying to get you to take sides on something. So I think that's another thing also, that people feel pressured to take sides and they let that, or to react to someone taking a side that they don't like. So even pausing to not get sucked into that dichotomous thinking, I think is a very, very healthy thing. All right, so I think we've got enough from the gist of what he's doing, even if we can't define it specifically. I wanted to do Rבינו Yona now. Okay, Rבינו Yona, and I also only previewed this. I didn't learn through it. Rבינו Yona says on the left side, right? Yeah. Okay, Lev Tzadik Yagelanos. Higayon libo kol hayom lahachnea, or I think that's how you say lahachnea. Yeah. So the thought of his heart all day long is to make himself be submissive or subdued. Because there's a need for arranging your thoughts. In being persistent in the preliminary steps in thought to arrive at humility. And to love lowliness, again, like lowliness in the sense of anava, ulahasig es Is that where we at? Yeah. Ulhasi es tavas hakavod. Ulhasi es tavas hakavod? I feel like that's a typo. What should that be? I mean, maybe it's not a typo, but
Can't have Lahasig also be to hate, like Hasagas Arrivad, like to antagonize?
I mean, Hasagas Arrivad is like that's interesting.
Maybe it should be with a Samach.
That's interesting. Yeah, like to limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Lahasig, yeah. I got remind me to look that up later in the Klein dictionary. Ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra davak bo. Because the inclination of man's heart is evil and clings to him or clings to his heart. I'm not sure. Machsheles hazos. Machsheles is weird, right? Smichus. Yeah, hazos hichshila kol yoshvei chaled. He's being very poetic here in a weird way. He does this sometimes, right? You notice he'll wax poetic. And it will cause all those who dwell on rusty earth. No, it doesn't mean rusty here. Who dwell on actual like saying, I think like decaying earth or something like that, for Khaled, to stumble. V'nokshu v'nilkadu, and they'll be ensnared and entrapped. V'hasaridim asher sardu mehem, and the remnants who remain, yeah, kolosaridim, heim hanigashim el Hashem. They're the ones who enter into before Hashem. I hate it when he says that, and the Toras Chaim doesn't footnote which sha'arim he's talking about. I assume he means the Sha'arei Tshuva. But if the footnote doesn't say it, then does that mean that he had other sharim that we don't know about? Because Toras Chaim is very good at quoting Sha'arei Tshuva, and they usually quote the entire thing. Right? Upirushaim yabia raos lo dayam lo rav lahem. See, this is another thing, right? So I think dayam. Yeah, it's not enough for them. V'lo rav lahem. It's not too much for them. Is asher levavam lo yachniu. Not only, I think he's just saying in a really roundabout way, not only is their heart not submissive, and they don't endeavor to acquire lowliness, but their mouth is constantly spouting evils. I would say it's chitasam, but whatever. They want to instill the trepidation of them among the land of the living. In the land of living. They do many things to get the people to honor them. Weird poetry, man. Like, and their evil does not attain the level of the evil of those who seek to dominate with their arm, with their outstretched arm. And Chazal say about these people who try to instill their trepidation on the living that they're going to be judged in Gehenna for generations. Okay, what is he saying? I feel like this is also kind of like in the Rishesh's Gurandi.
Well, that's what definitely talks about striving or the lack thereof through trailers.
Yeah, right. Gaiva and Shiflus are a big thing here. Yeah, he doesn't take the shtika route, but he does take the Yeah, but how's he reading the pasuk? Lev tzadik yehege la'anos. But did he even explain that?
Was he saying that was Marke Lev?
Right. Yeah, right. So he explained, he said that, but he didn't come back to it. Oh, I know what he's doing. Oh, this is weird. Is he saying yehege la'anos is lashon anava? To become humble? Lahachnea is lanos, to become humble or to make humble. But he's talking about to themselves, right? So the heart of the tzaddik is, I think it's lanos oso, to make him humble, That's interesting.
That's probably also Risheshas.
Well, Risheshas seems to be getting it clearly from the context,
Context.
Yeah, right. And he also, did he? Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah. Machlokas in Girona. Yeah. I mean, one interesting thing here is just as a comment on the inyan, not necessarily in the pasuk or the pirush. It is funny when you look at usually celebrities, probably athletes also, like there is a certain type of person that actually seems to value haughtiness. Like, I want to be the greatest, like it's just, it's like in the same, someone made the comment recently, I'm listening as a 1840 podcast on going off the derech, and David Beshefkin was asking this guy who went off the derech, like, what do you hold Jewish values are, that are like, of value, like uniquely Jewish values? Because this guy was saying how, like, saying being a progressive liberal, like people will call that Jewish values, but like that's like, common to a lot of places in America. So one of the things he said is rejecting Lashon Hara as a cultural norm. He says that's not present anywhere else, and so it's like people will gossip about each other in the non-Jewish world, and it doesn't even occur to them that this is something to be avoided. I'm getting a vibe here as well of like, there are people who clamor to build themselves up in the eyes of everyone else, and it doesn't even occur to them that you should desire the opposite. And it doesn't occur to them the pitfalls of egocentrism, like maybe they'll see that socially it's not acceptable in the sense of if you act haughtily, but like the idea of I want people to admire me, like it just doesn't occur to them that that's just setting yourself up for failure, unhappiness, like an infinite goal that you can't reach, it's just like, so I'm getting the sense here that when you're saying like the tzaddikim cultivate, they're what did he use? Le'ehov es hashiflus. Yeah, v'le'ehov es hashiflus, loving lowliness. I know a lot of people in society, I mean, not personal people, but like the notion of loving not being in the limelight, like that's not a thing that people love, So Lev Tzadik Yehege Lanos. So he's like constantly trying to find ways to cling to humility and to make himself humble. And the Rasha is letting his mouth run to fuel his ego, and even to the point where he's trying to. I think the focus on the trepidation and the intimidation factor is he is imposing his self on them by making himself by like you guys are going to listen to me, you're going to subordinate yourselves to me. It's like, but that's like the counter instinct here. So could we get? I really want to get this idea here. I feel like we're circling. And by the way, this does square with our technical definition of the Tzadik and the Rasha. The Tzadik wanting to do what's best for the system and recognizing himself as just a part of the system, whereas the Rasha wanting to supplant the natural system with a system that glorifies him. I mean, again, you really do see this in Trump, that the automatic response of all the statements being either about he's the best or he's going to make this happen, or it's just like it, but it's automatic. It's like not even like do you see the thing when this meeting with the South African prime minister, president, and like the president said something like, "I'm sorry, we don't have a plane to give you," and he was trying to make this statement about like kind of like making an edgy comment about how like about the Qatar thing, and Trump just with that thing is like, if you did, I would take it. He's not even realizing his ego is so big. He's not even realizing that the guy's trying to like make a dig at him. He's just like, obviously I deserve a plane, and like, yeah, you can't do it. Like, it's just like, it's just automatically in self-serving ego mode, So I think the idea, I'm going to try to take one more step, which is that the key to this is to recognize that the automatic mouth, like the automatic speech, is going to be a way for this mida of gaiva to further itself in the person. And that, now I'm going to borrow from Rבינו Sheshes, that you need to cultivate, I'm projecting Rבינו Sheshes in, but I'm in too far, that you need to cultivate the automatic habit of silencing yourself in order to create space to be able to pursue anava. In other words, like Rei and Yona is focusing on working on your actual lave to seek anava, but given the second half of Revenu Yona, I like Revenu Shesh's approach to the first half, which you need to like create a counterforce to the automatic mouth, is the heart realize like, no, I need to like, stop talking and stop intimidating people with my speech, stop like glorifying myself, and like find ways to work on another. But yeah, Isaac.
Yeah, I don't think that you're projecting your she's into the first half, because I think part of the nuance of the pasuk is it does seem to be talking about like more delayed speech versus like the like bubbling speech.
Yeah, right. Sorry, I didn't hear the first part you said. You don't think and then it got muffled.
I don't think that you're like force reading Rabbeinu Shishis.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, in the interest of time, let's go on to one more. I want to do the Malbim, who you don't have in the packet, because the Malbim is the only one I saw who, or not the only one, the one I saw who focuses the most on evil speech. Okay, so he says, Lev Tzadik Yagelanos. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so Michuke Hatzedek Shelo Yishlach Piv Ledaber Ad Yishkol Hadavar B'Sichlo. So one of the what would be a good word here? Principles of righteousness is to not send forth your mouth to speak until you've weighed the matter in your mind. V'lo levad masha medaber, and not only what you say, ki gam mash etzarech la'anos ulahashiv teshuva, but even like in others, not only in what you initiate in your speech, but even in what you respond. Lev tzadik yehegev yachshov ma'alanos. The heart of the tzaddik, or the mind of the tzaddik, will think and then contemplate what to respond. V'im yaneh im lav, and whether or not to respond. Kamosha kasav the dam masha tashiv lab pikoros. Okay, so not just to respond, but like to refute, I think. He's giving examples. Dam masha tashiv lab pikoros. Al tan ksil kivalto. Don't respond to the fool according to his foolishness. Mitzvah shelo lomar davar she'eno nishma. Oh, I think I'm getting, or whatever. And sometimes it's mitzvah to not say something that will not be listened to, of chudam and things like that. To the point where he will not answer until he weighs it in his mind. For the Rishaim, the wellspring of speech is not in their mind. Rak pi Rishaim yabia raos, but the mouth of the Rishaim will bubble out raos. Ki diburam ra'im lashon hara urechilus v'divrei minus. It is lashon hara, gossip, and words of heresy. Mekorim b'fiem lo b'libam. The root, the source is in their mouth, not in their heart. Right. So, practically speaking, he's saying the tzaddik needs to weigh whether to speak and what to say, but he does that in his mind with his thinking. The Rasha doesn't do that, and the wellspring of his speech is in his mouth, and it's all kinds of evil. So what intrigues me about this is it's very different kinds of speech that he gives for the good examples and the bad examples. Responding to Apikoros, responding to a fool, not giving tochacha when it's not relevant, and then for the Rishaim, lashon hara, rechilos, and minus. So what is he getting at here? Also, the way he frames this, Michuke had tzedek, and like the chok of the Rasha. Yeah, Oren?
What do you mean that those are different? Those sounds like the same, that the Rasha is saying these things and the Tzaddik is responding.
Maybe.
They sound like different categories of speech, but they sound like the same categories.
Okay, let me think about if I can articulate my question more. I guess my question is like this. Let's take the Rasha because it's easier. To me, the type of person who speaks heresy is not inherently the same as the type of person who speaks lashon hara, right? And similarly with the tzaddik, a person who knows and adequately assesses what to respond to the apikoros is not that's not the same quality as knowing whether to give tochacha to someone. So I guess my question is, what is the common quality in that the pasuk is highlighting that is responsible for the tzaddik making all the right decisions about when and whether to speak, and the common bad quality in the mouth of the Rasha responsible for these different kinds of bad speech? Yeah, Isaac?
Maybe this doesn't answer the question fully, but I was hearing it as like the types of situations where a tzaddik wants to speak versus the types of situations where a Rasha wants to speak.
Okay. All right. I think that's a good candidate. Yeah. Yeah. Oren, what do you want to say?
I mean, so I think you're right that like there is a kind of, like heresy that maybe this isn't talking about, like like a really thought out kind of way. But I think there's also kind of meanness that comes about when people just kind of don't think. And I think that's kind of the through line, I think, for the Rasha, and conversely for the Tzaddik. The Rasha just doesn't think before they speak. So they say bad things about other people, and they say things that actually just flatly contradict, I don't know, whatever, pasukim or whatever it is. Whereas the Tzaddik will think before they speak, and they know not to say these things, and they can counteract them.
Okay, good. So I think that's actually a good jumping off point then for us to ask the question on the Malbim, which we've been asking on everyone else, is what's the difference between the Rasha and the Evil in this case? Is it that both of them have the same quality of their mouth talks on its own, and it's just that because the Rasha is involved in these bad things, that the speech is minos and lashon hara, whereas the Evil is not necessarily involved in that? Or is it a different midah in the Rasha than in the Evil? Yeah, Oren?
Yeah, maybe in the Evil they do it because, well, they don't know better. But maybe for the Rasha, it's maybe like sort of like what you were saying with the wait time 1 and 2. Like with the Rasha, that they think that the way to get others to recognize them as being intelligent is like say a lot of things and to say them fast. Whereas, and the chiddush of this pasuk is telling you that actually the real way to get social clout for your intelligence is to actually think before you speak, and not and that it's Mishlei because it will both lead to increased social clout and also because it will actually make the quality of your speech better.
Okay, that's good. Again, a good example of this is militant atheists, right? The militant atheist may have like legitimate questions, but what they're doing is like their mouth is just primed to bash religion automatically. Like if you've ever seen YouTube videos or spoken with someone like, it's just like they're not thinking about it, and they're just like that's just their it's a weapon that they have in order to be able to I'm thinking to last night's Tillim, it's like they're wielding the sword of analysis, but they're doing it for dominance and winning arguments, not for finding the truth or using the means of like ideas to persuade their opponent. Yeah. Okay, so we didn't fully develop any of the ideas, but a quick review here. So we had I think the most fully developed one was Rabbeinu Sheshes, who says that this is about the default position of shtika versus the default position of speaking, which caters to haughtiness and humility. That could be a tool. So cultivating that reflex in either direction will help you towards either of those paths. We had Rabbeinu Yona, who is similar, but focusing more on anava and imposing oneself on the other person and power seeking in its own right, and maybe using speech for that reason, but usually more of an internal thing. And then the Malbim, who is focused on the person who has automatic rishus speech, which is similar to the automatic evil speech, but the Rasha is trying to do it to get this social clout or to win or to prove his point or to be good. Yeah. Okay. Interesting pasuk. Yeah, I like yesterday's development. I'm happier with our ideas for now. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.